Hello everyone, welcome back to Assist Tech Hub. In this spring batch tutorial series, we'll start from the basic and gradually progress to advanced level. And also we are going to learn real world use cases with practical examples. So in this series, we'll cover what is spring batch and why we are using it, and core concepts like job, step, item reader, item processor, item writer, job launcher, and also the real world examples. So in this video, we'll build a real world Spring Batch job that will be read millions of data from a CSV file, and it will be right into the database. And here we are going to use PostgreSQL database. Okay, let's get started. So what is Spring Batch? What is Spring Batch? Batch processing means we don't process data immediately. Okay, data is like we first collect a lot of data and then process it together at once. Like data is collected over time, processed together in bulk. Okay, like unlike real time system where every request is handled instantly, right? So in batch jobs usually run at a fixed time, likely every night in a scheduler, those things. This in batch we are not going to use, like not real time. Okay, if you see here, runs on scheduler or trigger. Okay, some examples like laundry, daily report generation, data migration. Okay, there are a lot more examples. Okay, I highlighted some small examples here. Okay, so a simple example like laundry, right? Washing clothes. So we don't wash one cloth at a time. So we wait we until we have many dirty cloths and wash them together in one batch, right? That same way, data migration, moving millions of records from one system to another system. Okay, there we can go for spring batch and we will be use that time spring batch. Why batch processing is required, right? So batch processing is ideal for large data volume. Whenever we will deal with large set of data, large volume of data, then we'll be choose the spring batch. It runs in bulk, usually off peak hours. Off peak hour means the server will be less traffic. At that time we are using those schedulers to execute. If I can give an example like Amazon, Flipkart, millions of customers place orders throughout the day, right? At night, batch jobs run to handle bulk tasks such as generating daily sales reports and analytics. So every night it will be run a batch and it will be generate the report. Now in spring batch is a framework. Okay, spring batch spring batch is a framework used to build batch applications in Java. When combined with Spring Boot, it becomes much easier to configure and run batch jobs. Okay, if you see some examples here, millions of orders are placed during the day. Batch jobs run at night, used for daily sales report and analytics. Okay, features and batch processing. When will be choose batch processing? When will choose the real time processing? Like collect data and process later, like reports and analytics. So that there will be choose batch processing, right? If process instantly, then we'll be go for real time process like UPI money transfer, those things. Performance optimized for large data volumes, optimized for speed. When immediate results are not required, daily reports immediately it is not required. If you see here UPI money transfer, like that kind of example, immediate results are required. So there we can go for real time processing. If we need like report generation or migrating some data, millions of data, one system to another system, that time we go for spring batch. Okay, now spring batch with spring boot, what benefits we are getting? So if you see Spring Boot batch combines Spring Batch with Spring Boot's auto configuration, make batch jobs easier to build and run. It provides like scheduling the job, chunk based processing. We'll see what is chunk based, error handling and retrace, monitoring and logging, right? Monitoring and logging. So okay, now we have some core concepts in Spring Batch before moving to an example. Let's understand what those things like job, step, item reader, item processor, item writer, job launcher. Okay, now a job is the entire batch process, like end-to-end process. We can call it a job. Like if I want to generate a report, so the end-to-end flow, starting point to start the query and getting the data, right? Either a CSV file or a TSV file. So to input to output, whole process we can call it is a job. Like here I had given load CSV data to database. The end-to-end flow we can call it a job. Now, what is step? A job is made of one or more steps, right? Each steps having one logical unit of work. A job having multiple steps can run, right? One step, one task, another step, another type of task, those kind of things. Like here, if a step I can say like it will be a reader, processor, writer, right? Like these steps work will be, it will be read the data, process the data, write the data. Okay, that is nothing but step. Then item reader. So item, there are different type of item reader. Like if we are using file, so then file reader, right? Flat file reader, those things will be see, or the database reader, those things reads input data from CSV, TSV, database, file, those things, right? It has only one responsibility, to read the data only. This item reader's job only will be read the data from the input system. Okay, nothing but file or database. So what is item processor? Item processor transforms whatever it reads the data, it will be transfers or validate the data, like data conversion, validation, filtering, invalid records. For example, we are reading some data and we need some like conversion of those data to those object to another object. That time we need those processor. Okay, kind of like one object, like a reader object to entity object, right? So the processor, if we need some validation of those data, that time we can go for item processor. Then what is item writer? Item writer's job will be writes data to into a destination like database, file. Okay, here we can write the data in chunks. Like for example, I have a millions of record. I am not going to write one by one record into the database or file, right? I need to choose some batch size, like if you heard about like chunk batch, like thousands or 2000 or 5000s, based on our configuration and performance and requirement. Okay, based on that we can choose the chunk size. Then it will be write those chunks at once. For example, I choose 5000, so 5000 records it will be commit at one time. Okay, now job launcher. The job launcher, it is used to start or launch a job. So job is there, so who will be run this job? Okay, so for to running a job, Spring Batch job, the job launcher will be responsible to run or trigger that job. Okay, a Spring Batch job does not run automatically, it needs something to trigger, that is the job launcher. Okay, now next to move. Okay, now let's understand this flow, how the job will be executed, right? For example, we can execute our jobs through a scheduler, through a REST API, through a startup of our application. Okay, then the API will be called to the job launcher. Okay, the job launcher will be called to the job. Now the job will be start the batch process to calling the step. Okay, the step will be taken care of executing the item reader, item processor, item writer. So this is the flow. Okay, now let's go to next one. Okay, now Before we are going to moving our example, let's understand what we need basic things. Okay, like we will create a Spring Boot project and add dependencies like Spring Boot starter batch, Spring Boot starter jdbc, Spring Boot starter data jp, postgresql. Okay, postgresql. And one more important point, create a separate db schema in our application. Like in a real-time application we have a schema, okay, main schema like business functionalities, business entities, those things are storing. Okay, so the recommended way to deal with Spring Batch, create the Spring Batch data tables or metadata tables in a separate schema, so that way it will be not interact with the main schema. Okay, so we'll understand those tables and what was the use of those tables, those things we are going to understand. Okay, if you see where will we get those schema, basically spring Batch provides to specific db, it is provide the sql files. Okay, the scripts it is providing by the Spring people only. Let's understand those things. Okay, we'll start that now. In this tutorial coming videos we'll see, we load 1 million records into database using single thread and parallel thread. Okay, then the next one, high performance batch processing using multi-threading and asynchronous, then processing 10 million records using partitioner. After that we'll see how to handle invalid, fail, skipped records. Then we'll be load data from csv into multiple tables. Then database to database migration like mysql to postgresql. Okay, okay. Now before starting, let's create our schema and understand. Okay, if you see here I mentioned in below location we can identify in IntelliJ. Okay, I'm using IntelliJ, so here external library Spring Batch core, so that we can see, we can go through that. Okay, now let's create the Spring Boot project from the Spring initializer. Okay, so here I need to add the Spring Data JPA dependency, Spring Batch, Spring Batch JDBC, PostgreSQL, Spring Web, and Lombok. Okay, then we need to create. Okay, it generated the project. Let me import. Okay, now if you see, okay, I have some files earlier. Okay, I have imported the project and I have some files. I have some 1 million data record here and this one also. Okay, as I mentioned, this one we'll see the SQL file provided by Spring people. Okay, let me go to external libraries. If you here see Spring core, okay, let's see for the Spring core. Okay, if you see here this one, okay, this is the one. You have to open this one. Okay, then metanf Spring Batch core. Then here if you see, it is providing different files. Okay, now as we are using PostgreSQL, right, we can open this one. This is the drop statements. If you see here, now schema, if you see batch job instance, batch job execution, those things. Okay, now as I copied this file into my resource folder, okay, the same thing. It is always recommended to create manually this schema, not through programmatically or automated way, because, and one more thing, always remember to create a different schema as I earlier explained. Okay, now if you see those batch job instance, batch job execution, these tables are provided by Spring, these definitions. Okay, now what we'll do, we'll be create a separate schema for our application. We have app schema and base schema, two different schema. So the main business functionality will be deal with our main schema, and the base will be deal with the base schema tables. These tables will be created in the base. base schema. Okay, now let's go to postgres db and create those things. Okay, now let me open the db. Okay, as I am using dbeaver connecting to the postgres db here, let me open sql editor. Okay, new script. Okay, now I have to use a schema, right? To then the command is create schema batch schema. Okay, now if you see under schemas I have public, so I want to create another schema. Okay, now let me create it. Okay, now let me refresh this one. Okay, base schema has created now. Okay, so for this base schema we have to create credentials as well. Okay, how can we create user, create user. Okay, create user batch user with password batch pass. Okay, if I can run this one it will throw some error. Okay, batch user is already exist because I have already created this user. Okay, no worries, this batch user already there in my system. Okay, now we have to give the grant permissions to this schema. We have to give the grant permission, right? Then grant uses, okay, on schema. Let me, okay, don't worry about that, I will be give these commands in the github link. Okay, grant users on schema. Okay, batch schema to batch user. Okay, it is done. Grant create on schema, batch schema to batch. Grant all privileges also you have to give to write sequences also. Now alter also. Okay, okay, this is batch db, no batch schema. Okay, okay, now everything is in place. Let me refresh this one. Okay, now for one time, now after this, okay, we have now for this spring batch db we have two databases, one, sorry, two schema, batch schema, public one. Okay, default one public is provided. Okay, now in our spring boot we have to configure the two dbs, right, in the application properties file. Okay, now let's go ahead and configure those things. Okay, so this one is already configured, there is no big deal here to understand. Okay, as you know, whenever we are creating a spring boot application, whatever databases we are using, the postgresql dialect, we have to add the data source, those things. Okay, this is the main data source. Okay, now for the batch data source it will be a separate user, right? Batch user, batch password, those things we have to add. Okay, so these two is configured in the properties file now. Okay, so after configure, so we have to configure these two. By default the spring will be taken care of the data source, right, 1db. So we have to configure programmatically, it will be deal with two databases, correct? Now let's configure these two data sources programmatically. Okay, so for that let's create a config package, new package config. Okay, now class, okay, data source config. Okay, now data source config. Okay, now we have to load this data to use the configuration annotation, right? Configuration. Okay, now let's load our main database. Okay, to create a main data source, like as you know, right, if you public data source, okay, I will give name as app data source. Okay, app data source or main data source based on your convention. App data source. Okay, source. Now we have to return the data source object, right? So data source builder dot create dot build, so it will be written as a data source object. Okay, so as you know, right, in the configuration we have to load this bin. Okay, then this data source will be deal with app data source, so we have to give those properties also to load, correct? Now at that configuration properties prefix. Okay, so prefix will be start from let's go to our property spring data source, correct? Spring data source. Okay, now this is our, how can we made a bin as a primary, so we'll use at that primary. So this is our primary data source. Okay, the same way let's configure our batch data source also, copy paste. So what will be the config properties? Spring batch data source, right? Spring batch data source, let's remove this, let's give the name as batch data source. Proper naming convention will be help. Okay, now these two data sources are configured in the application. Okay, now let's run this application, either it is up and running or not. Okay, if you see application up and running, so the configuration is success now. Okay, now let's stop this application now. Now data source is configured, right? Now once data source is configured, we have to execute our schemas for the batch, correct? Spring batch, we have to execute these things, correct? These things we have to execute. So instead of I will be execute one by one in DB, let's understand through programmatically also once how it is, how this class we are going to execute. Okay, okay, now through code we are going to generate, but I will not recommend to do, always execute this file into your direct SQL client only. Okay, now create another class, config new Java class. What I'll give, dv schema config. Okay, okay, schema config. Okay, the same way I'll define at the configuration. Okay, now we have to, we have like in spring batch we have a data source initializer class, public data source initializer. Okay, batch schema initializer. Okay, so in the batch schema initializer, which data source we have to use? We need some data source we have to use, right? Batch data source. Okay, now okay, then we have one another class, resource database populator. Resource populator equal to, okay, now we have to run the scripts. Now where my script is there? On the resource folder, populator dot add script. Okay, so how to read the file from the resource folder? Class path resource, right? So I can give the name schema minus postgresql dot sql, right? Okay, populator dot set fail drops to some configuration. Okay, now we need to create a data source initializer object, data source initializer. Okay, then data source initializer dot set data source of batch data source. Okay, okay, set data source, and data source in set data source populator. Okay, now data source initializer set enabled true. Okay, now we have to return this object, return data source initializer. So as at that bin we have to load this one. Okay, then we have to add here at that enable batch processing. Okay, now as we have to deal with a different schema, so we need a job repository to configure. We'll understand that. Okay, the same way public. Okay, before that let's test either if this will be not work, we will create the job repository to deal with that. Okay, let's run this application now. Schema PostgreSQL. Now if you let's go ahead and check it here. Base schema, tables, no tables, no sequences. If you see no sequences, no tables. Okay, now let's go to our here. Okay, now let's run this application now. Okay, if you see started, let's see either those tables are created or not. Let me refresh it. Perfect, it is created, right? Now batch job execution, batch job execution context, everything is created. Those tables, we'll understand these tables later. Okay, now stop this application. Okay, now once as per our the flow, we need an go through this way. Okay, this one, like we can create a client. Okay, REST API we can create, then we'll create a job launcher, then we'll create a job, then we'll create a step. Okay, okay, now let's create a controller package. New package controller. Okay, new Java class. Okay, employee job controller, because I have created some data related to the employee. Actually, if I can open this one, like if you see millions of record is there. Okay, this file I have generated earlier for testing purpose. Okay, if you see this, okay, this file is there. Okay, now let's move. So as usual, our common annotations, request mapping slash API. Okay, slash. Okay, now public response entity of start job. Okay, okay, here I can request body. Okay, map of string I'm taking. Okay, then file name. Okay, or maybe this API will be accept that file name. For that file name it will be read from here. Okay, that's why I'm using here the file name at the post mapping. Okay, now to start the job. Okay, now let's return new response entity of job execution completed. Okay, http start. Okay, okay, it will be written. Okay, now we need the job launcher here, right? As our uh, job needs a job launcher to trigger that. Okay, now let's automate that private job launcher. Okay, then job launcher needs to execute which job? Private job employee data import job. import job. Okay, now this job launcher will be run this job. Okay, now here job launcher needs some job parameters. Okay, job parameters, new job parameters of, it needs add. Okay, not new job parameter, it will be builder object. Okay, dot add long. Okay, so it will add a parameter name. Okay, you can give any name here based on your requirement. It will be a unique, okay, unique id, system dot current millisecond to job parameters. Okay, now the job launcher, right? Job launcher dot run of what, it will be asking for the job and job parameters. If you see here, job parameters, run of job means employee import job. Okay, then job parameters, job parameter. Okay, now our control list looks good. Okay, it is showing some exception. Okay, let's add that. Okay, now our job launcher is ready. As our job launcher is ready, now let's see to create a job now. Okay, now new Java class employee data migration job. Okay, okay, now let's annotate with a configuration here. Okay, now we have to create a job here. Okay, public job, job. So this, okay, so this job name we can, now we have created this one, right? We have to give this one, so the bean will be taken care, right? Bean employee data import job. Okay, so the job will be accept the step, okay, and the job repository. Okay, job repository, then step employee 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 data import step. Okay, now, okay, we have to return the job object, correct? Okay, now here return new job builder. Okay, return new job builder of, it is expecting what, it is expecting, let's see, job repository, right? This job name. Okay, then job repository. Okay, dot start. Okay, so dot start. So what this job builder will be do now, let me scroll left. Okay, now this job repository is responsibility to, okay, now this job repository will be, what it will do, it will be take these details of the job and store into the database like job execution, those things. Okay, store string based metadata, job execution status. Okay, step execution status, start time, end time, all those details it will store. Okay, those things will be seen later. Now start. Okay, what it will start, this employee data import step. Okay, this will be start. Now dot increment. Okay, new run id increment, new run id incrementer dot build. Okay, now this is done. Okay, Now here, what is this job? Okay, this job represents one complete as earlier also we discussed, right? End-to-end process it is responsible from for this job. Okay, whenever the job launcher will be called to this job's responsibility to importing the data to the database. Okay, now job repository stores the metadata. Okay, stores the metadata related to this job like job execution status, step execution status, start time, end time, all the parameters it will be stored. Now this new job builder will be create job builder with job name. Okay, with job name, then links to the job repository. Okay, now this incrementer. Okay, incrementer automatically adds a unique id for every job execution. How many times will be execute, it will be add a new unique id. Okay, allow the same job to run multiple times without conflicts. Okay, now job has created, correct? Now let's create a step. Okay, public step employee data import step. Okay, public step, copy this one. Remember, it will be matched with this name because these bins will be loaded to here. Okay, at that bin employee data import step. Okay, so in this step also we need the job repository. Job repository, job repository. So in a step, platform transaction manager, platform transaction manager. Okay, then we need the into this step we need the reader, processor, writer. Okay, now let's configure flat file item reader. Okay, so this flat file item reader, from where reader for which class, right? We need a pojo class, correct? For this csv data, for these names we need a pojo class, correct? Okay, now let's create a model. Java package model. Okay, now model new java class employee. Okay, employee model. Okay, employee data mapper. Okay, this will be csv to this mapper. Okay, now what are the attributes are there? Let's go ahead here. Not able to go. Why? Oh my god. Okay, let me open this file. Open in explore, open in notepad, and copy the column names. Okay, now I copied the column names. These are the columns. Okay, okay, now private long employee id. Okay, employee id. Okay, okay, employee id. Alt insert generate getter setters. Okay, you can use lombok as well, not a problem. Okay, now employee data mapper is ready. Okay, now let's go to our employee data migration job. Okay, here the flat file item reader will be accept data mapper. Okay, this is the reader. Okay, now once reader is done, okay, item reader, okay, now it needs the processor as well. Okay, now item processor. Okay, If you see here, item processor input and output. So we need to convert the input object employee data mapper object to employee entity object, right? Let's go employee data mapper, comma, let's create the entity object as well, the same with the same attributes. Okay, new package entity object, then new Java class entity. Okay, at the table at the table name is equal to employee at the entity. Okay, now let's copy the same attributes. Okay, query our mapper class. Okay, as we need, right, at that id. Okay, now same hold insert getter setters. Okay, now this item process mapper to entity employee entity. Okay, then it will be employee item processor, comma. Okay, now item reader we need item writer, sorry, item writer of what will be the output, right? It will be expecting the entity class, right? Item writer. Okay, now here also we need the step return new not new step builder. Okay, return new step builder of we need the step name. Okay, we need to pass the job repository. Okay, then dot chunk. Okay, so it is expecting chunk size. Okay, from employee reader to writer, employee data mapper, employee entity. Okay, chunk size of how many, let's give it now 2000. Okay, then platform transaction manager will understand this. Then dot what we need, first of all reader. Okay, reader of item reader. Okay, let's keep the item reader. Okay, now not build, then processor. Okay, item processor, then mm, then writer, item writer. Okay, dot build. Okay, dot build. Okay, now our reader is ready, processor writer. Okay, now this reader will be responsible to read the data. Let's configure the flat file item reader. Okay, let's create another package here. Okay, reader. Okay, now employee item reader. Okay, let's create it here. Add the configuration to load this one. Okay, now here we can use public what reader we are using now, flat file item reader. Flat file item reader of what will be the POJO class, employee data mapper. Okay, then item reader. Okay, then we need to return the flat file item reader. So create the builder object, the flat file item reader builder. Okay, of employee data mapper reader. Okay, dot set name equal to, we can give the employee reader. Okay, now flat file dot set resource. Okay, resource of from where it will be read, right? Our file there in under the resource folder. Okay, employee 1 million. Okay, new class path resource of employee underscore 1 million dot csv. Okay, now in the csv file we have a header also, right? Now flat file reader set line to skip. Okay, first line will be skip, the header we don't need to parse, right? Then what will be the delimiter? Dot delimited dot delimiter of comma, right? csv means comma. Dot what will be the names, right? Employee id, first name, last name. Okay, we need those names. Yeah, okay. Now then dot we we need to set these attributes to our Pojo class. Now the field set mapper, right? Field set of, we need to create an object. Data mapper equal data mapper, what will be read, it will be now map to this one, e dot set employee id. Okay, set employee id equal to field set dot get field set dot read long as employee id, copy or paste it. Okay, now here give the name as e. Okay, now okay, then return e. Okay, now after collecting, let's return dot build object. Okay, now our reader is good. Let's mark as at that bin. Okay, now reader is done here. Okay, number d. Okay, now after reader, what we need? Processor. New java package processor. Okay, employee item processor. Okay, and implements from item processor. Okay, if you see in item processor, what will be the input object, what will be the output object? Like that, here the input object will be employee data mapper, the output object will be employee entity. So it will be it will be once it will be reader, the reader will be pass the employee mapper object to here, and it will be mapped to the entity class. Okay, employee data mapper employee entity. Okay, now let's override the method, implemented method. Okay, now here we have to learn one thing. Okay, if okay, let's map employee entity new employee entity object. Okay, now okay, if you see, I'm getting from item object those things right here. Okay, now I don't want to, I want to some validation. Okay, item dot get, okay, email. Okay, null dot null double equal to item dot get email, or item dot get email dot trim dot is empty. Okay, then I want to return null. So that object I don't want to process further. If it is returning null, that object will be not passed to the writer one. Okay, so null object will be never passed to the writer object. Okay, writer class. Now is processor also done. Now let's configure our writer as well. New java package writer. Okay, now writer new java class employee item writer. Why it is getting one line? Okay, we'll see. Component. Okay, now we can use here JDBC batch item writer. So we'll see later point of view why will be use JDBC batch item writer, not JPA. Okay, so private final JDBC batch item writer of employee entity writer. Okay, now we have to initialize inside the constructor. Okay, employee item writer, sorry, data source. Okay, we need the data source. What data source we need here? The batch data source. Okay, okay, now here we have to initialize this dot JDBC batch item writer batch builder employee entity. Okay, dot data source of, then dot SQL. Okay, we have to pass the SQL query as well. Okay, now the insert statement we have to generate. Correct. So always prefer to get, okay, now in our main tables, employee table. Okay, I have an employee table. Okay, we'll delete this one. Generate SQL. Okay, generate SQL insert statement. If you see here, always copy this one, and now define it here. Paste it. Okay. Okay, it's taking some time. Okay, insert into public.employee, employee ID, doj, email, first name, last name, middle name, phone number. Okay, and employee ID also. Here if you see, this will be mapped to employee ID, doj, email, first name, last name, middle name. Okay, never use query parameter. This will be used to map to that column only directly. Okay, dot bin mapped. Okay, so the bin mapped will be maps the SQL parameters to the employee entity directly. Okay, these values will be directly mapped to the employee. It will not see the column orders. Okay, if you use the query parameter always it will be see the column orders. Okay, build. Okay, now employee item writer, let's implement from item writer. Okay, item writer of employee entity. Now okay, here we'll see the then here dot write of chunk. Okay, this chunk nothing but here all the items it will become. Okay, let's s out. Okay, writing total employee records in the current chunk. Okay, plus chunk size. Okay, don't use this out in your production system, always prefer to the logger. Okay, if you don't know logging, then go ahead and learn the logger as well. Okay, now okay, employee item reader also done. Okay, okay, this one is done, this one employee item writer. Okay, what is error? Okay, plus why chunk dot size. Okay, okay, chunk dot size. Okay, now everything is ready now. Okay, now let's run our application. If any error is there or not there, we'll see that. Okay, but before that we need to disable something. db schema config, right? We have to disable it, should not be created another time. Okay, and here also we need to configure one more time the job repository thing commonly, so that it will be use those tables to insert the metadata. Okay, let that be in public job repository data source batch data source. Okay, transaction manager. Okay, then job repository factory bin. Okay, job repository factory bin, repository factory bin. Okay, factory bin set data source. Okay, how the batch data source? Let's see data source. Okay, this is the batch data source. Okay, so data source of batch data source. Now factory dot set transaction manager. Okay, then factory dot set table prefix, right? So table prefix will be our batch schema. Okay, as we are using batch schema dot batch underscore. Okay, factory bin dot property set, and factory bin dot get object. Okay, now we have to create the platform transaction manager object. Here we need. Okay, add that bin transaction manager data source use batch data source. Okay, return new data source transaction manager of batch data source. Okay, now let's run this application. Okay, now let's run this application, but before running this application, let's clean up the data. Earlier we have some data actually in the table. Okay, we have some data. If you see here some data is there, let's delete this data directly. Okay, now you're good. Let's run our application. Okay, now application, if you see here is started. Okay, now as we already developed a API here, let's hit this API. Now let's from postman. Okay, if you see here I'm hitting from postman. Now let me hit this API. Okay, now let's refresh the tables also here. Okay, employee table has created, but there is no data now. Okay, now let's go to postman. Now hit the API. Let's observe the logs now. Okay, now if you see current sum. Okay, what we have a log item writer. Okay, chunk dot size, so it is not printing the size. Okay, we'll see that. Let's see. Okay, if you see the here job is completed with following parameters. Okay, now let's go ahead and check the database. Now let's refresh this data. Okay, if you see here, let's see how many records came. 1 million record came here. Okay, now if you see okay, now it is running only one thread. If you see here only one thread it is running. Now let's run the same thing. Okay, if you see here execute the step, right, data import step, it is took 40, the step will be took 43 seconds. Okay, now we'll see the difference. Okay, now let's configure the multi-threading also here. Okay, now where we'll configure that, we'll configure here. Okay, okay, now let's stop this application. Okay, now let me configure that. Okay, multi-threaded way. Okay, let there be public task executor task executor. Okay, we'll create that. Then thread pool task executor, new thread pool task executor. Okay, executor dot set core pool size. We have to give the core pool size 5. set max pool size will be 5. Set queue capacity, we have to give the queue capacity as well. Okay, 10. Executor data set thread. Okay, thread name prefix, we'll give the thread name. Okay, batch thread. Okay, now executor dot initialize, return executor. Now we have created this, how to use this one, right? So here if you see, after write we have to use dot. Okay, already we have dot task executor of task executor. Okay, done. Okay, now let's delete the data again, because the same data, right? The primary key will be violation. Now if you can run the same thing, let's delete this table now. Okay, now it's deleted. Okay, now the application has started. Let's hit from the, okay, if you see it started, right? Yeah, let's see how much. If you see multiple threads, it is running here, 1 2 3 4 5. If you see how much quickly now it is running, see, done. 21 second, earlier it is 43 second, now it is 21 second. How much faster? This is the power of multi-threading, parallel execution, right? Okay, let's see the data has loaded or not. Okay, it is loaded, the data. Okay, now if you can go here, we'll see the timing, how much timing taken the schema, the batch. Let's open this. Okay, batch job execution, batch job instance. Okay, let's see this one. Okay, job instance. Okay, it's taking time to load. Okay, this is the job instance table, job instance id 3. Okay, now batch job execution. If you see, everything will be explained in the next video. Okay, now if you see the latest one, 3, correct? 3 to 2, two jobs we have run, right? The 2, if you see, 12:52 to start time, end time is this one, right? 9. It took approximately 40 seconds, right? Now if you see 57:49 to 58, so 11. Okay, here 11, 22 second. Okay, here 40 second, here 20 second, half second in the multi-threading. Okay, thank you so much for watching. If you like this one, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much.